Hello everyone, I am Heather. Thank you for joining me for this video today, in which I'm going to tell you everything that my family loved and hated about our cruise on Utopia of the Seas. This was a 4-night cruise on the August 19th, 2024 sailing of Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Utopia of the Seas. This is the latest ship in their Oasis class of ships, but there are some changes that they made to it from previous Oasis class ships, and I'm going to talk about a few of those in this video. We went on this trip. It was me, my 3 kids, Andrew, Megan, and Ben, who are adults and 1 teen, and we had 2 side-by-side rooms on deck 8 midship. I already made a video about the top 3 best and 3 worst things. I did that while we were still on the ship. If you haven't seen that video, make sure you go back and watch it. That's a nice quick summary, which I always make at the end of all of our cruises. I did mention in that video that I was a little apprehensive about taking this cruise on this ship because of the marketing for it that I saw in the weeks leading up to the cruise, and also the videos that I saw, reviews of the ship from other YouTube content creators who had gone on cruises before me. So ours was only like the 5th, I think, 4-night cruise on this ship. It had only been out for a month when we went on it. It came out on July 19th and we cruised on August 19th. So there wasn't a lot of information for me to go on other than what I'd seen, and I was feeling pretty nervous about it. I was also feeling a little bummed because I had actually had, I am and I'm not. I had actually had a Disney cruise booked instead that I canceled and switched to this. It's a long story. I had this cruise booked, then I changed to Disney cruise, and I changed back to Utopia of the Seas. This was a birthday cruise for me. It was my birthday when we were on the cruise. I like being on a cruise for my birthday, so I did spend a significant portion of the cruise wishing I was on a Disney cruise. I will tell you that. I'm a huge Disney fan. Disney Cruise Line is my favorite cruise line so far. Probably always will be. I really love Disney Cruise Line. And so I will admit that I was wishing I was on a Disney cruise. However, I'm not terribly disappointed that I canceled the one that I did have booked because it was on Disney Magic, which is the last Disney cruise ship that we had been on in 2023. And it was going to Lighthouse Point, which I was eager to see and to show you guys in a video, but so many other creators have been to Lighthouse Point. And there were some things I had some concerns about, and I'm definitely glad that we're going to be waiting to go to Lookout Key at Lighthouse Point, Disney's newest private destination, until later. So if you're interested in cruise content and you do want to see when we do go there, because we will definitely be going there at some point, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming cruise content. And if you haven't yet watched the vlogs that I did from every day of our cruise, those have already gone up on my channel. Make sure that you go back and watch those if you want to see more detail of what we did every day and what everything looks like and stuff. In this video, I am going to be listing for you the things that specifically loved and hated about this ship. Now, like I said, I was kind of wishing that I was on a Disney cruise. Interestingly, my son Andrew spent a lot of the time comparing this ship to the last cruise ship he had been on, which was actually Holland America's Eurodam, which we had taken on a cruise also with my dad to Alaska about 15 months prior. That was the last cruise any of us had gone on before this cruise on Utopia of the Seas. And I thought it was interesting that Andrew kept comparing this ship to that. Me, Megan, and Ben were definitely continually comparing it to Harmony of the Seas, which was the other Oasis class Royal Caribbean ship that we had been on previously. We had been on Harmony of the Seas 2 years earlier. So we were on it over Megan's birthday, end of May, beginning of June, 2022. That's the only other Oasis class ship I've been on. I will tell you right up front, aside from like some of the ways things looked and like their use of blue everywhere and stuff, and how pretty and new and nice and clean the ship was, I definitely preferred Harmony of the Seas over Utopia of the Seas, both the ship and the cruise. At the time, I had some issues with Harmony of the Seas. I did take that knowledge that I learned from my cruise on Harmony of the Seas and helped it benefit me on my cruise on Utopia. But I also still did like my cruise on Harmony of the Seas much better than Utopia. So I'll just tell you those things right up front. Okay, let's start out with the things that we loved about our cruise on Utopia of the Seas. 7 things that we loved about our cruise on Utopia of the Seas. Number 1, the ship. And I talked about this already in my 3 best and 3 worst. Ship was gorgeous, brand new ship, only a month old, super clean, in pristine condition, absolutely in immaculate condition. Ship looks great. Super nice. So we liked the ship. Second was the ice show. I also mentioned that in my 3 best and 3 worst. We loved the ice show. This was my favorite ice show I had seen on any Royal Caribbean cruise I had been on. Really impressed with the performers. Thought the ice show was very well done, very enjoyable. Really liked the ice show. Third was our balconies. We really liked our balconies on this particular cruise. They were a nice size. We liked the chairs. We had ottomans or footrests for all of our balcony chairs. The tables were good. It can be hit or miss what kind of tables you get on a balcony, but we really liked the balcony tables that we had on this cruise. We liked the height and the size of them. And then the other thing we really liked, we had never experienced this before because we'd never had 2 side-by-side staterooms before, was that our stateroom attendant opened up our balcony, so we basically had one giant balcony. We could walk over from side to side, we could see each other and talk to each other. We even actually went in and out of each other's rooms because we didn't have a connecting room. We were just side by side, but because we could go through our balconies, we could go into and out of each other's staterooms from the balconies. So that was kind of nice. Like, there were a couple times I had to go over and go in through the balcony to wake the boys up for the day. So I liked doing that rather than like calling them on the stateroom phone or something. We really liked the balconies and the balcony experience was nice. However, we didn't get as much use out of our balconies as I would like. Overall, I did not get as much connection with or time with the sea, with the ocean, as I would have liked on this cruise. For 3 reasons, which I will talk about in the hated list, but I'll give them to you quick. 1, it was too gall-dang hot. Oh my gosh, it was like being on the surface of the sun. The Bahamas, the Caribbean in August. I've done this a couple times now. So hot, okay? Secondly, cruise was too short. Thirdly, we're in port too much. I don't like sitting out on the balcony in port very much, especially when it's that hot. I actually like being out there if it's cool. Like in Alaska, I liked being out on my balcony when we were in port, but not when it's hot like that. So I like to be out on my balcony when there's a nice sea breeze going on. We didn't have enough of that on this cruise, but we liked our balconies a lot. Number 4, we had so much fun playing laser tag. We always try to do laser tag on Royal Caribbean ships when we're on a Royal Caribbean cruise, on the ships that offer it anyway, and we had a lot of fun playing laser tag. Number 5, I talked about this in my 3 best and 3 worst, was the main dining room experience. I didn't necessarily love where our table was originally, although it ended up being kind of quiet and nice, but the main dining room was very pretty, very elegant, and our staff in the main dining room, the crew that we had, were really terrific. Very attentive service, very expedient service, very efficient service, and all the food we had was really good. So we really liked the main dining room. And then along with that, number 6 was the food. We really did enjoy the food on this cruise. We were very happy with the taste and the quality and the presentation of the food on Utopia of the Seas. We were really pleased with the food. And then the last thing was the empty ship. And what I mean by that is on the day that we were in Perfect Day at Coco Cay, I stayed on the ship. I got off for a little bit just to get Ben off and to take some video and some pictures, but then I got right back on because it was way too hot for me, and I spent the day on an empty ship, which was bliss. I just absolutely love being on an empty ship, and this was probably the emptiest empty ship I had ever been on before. Everybody wanted to go to Coco Cay, and so it was great because there was nobody on the ship, and it was so quiet and so peaceful and so mellow. And I got some time to myself, and being an introvert, that was something that's important to me. And even though I absolutely love my kids, getting a little break from them and having that time to myself was really nice. So those were things that we loved about our cruise on Utopia of the Seas. All right, now I have to tackle the things we hated. All right. I'm going to say first off, don't everybody come at me saying, oh my gosh, you're just complaining. You're just whining. She's such a Karen. I hate that term. No, I'm not just complaining. We were legitimately analyzing and evaluating the ship being a new ship because we want to get as much information as we can for you, my viewers, so that you know what to expect. And so that you can be better prepared. And so you can know stuff ahead of time. Because boy, I sure don't like being surprised by things when I travel that are not good. You know, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Or, gosh, I really wish I would have just known that ahead of time. How many times have you said that to yourself when you travel? Okay. That's the whole goal of my channel, is to help you to be better prepared. And I can't help you to be better prepared unless I tell you all the stuff, good and bad. So this isn't complaining. This is just pointing out all the things we didn't like and that you may not like either, and that you need to be aware of so that you can be a better informed cruiser if you choose to go on a cruise on Utopia of the Seas. But I'm going to warn you, I started making the list, okay? And then I have a few pages here of how much we spent on our whole trip because we went to Disney World before the cruise. And this was the loved side. This was the hated side. I got the loved side all on the first page, but the hated side just kept going. Yikes. It kept going. All right. Now, some of these I realized after the fact, they kind of go together. And as that happens, I'll sort of point that out. But I just want to tell you there was a lot. But again, some of these are going to be nitpicky, but some of them are pretty significant. And I don't want you all coming at me in the comments saying, oh my gosh, you're just complaining. No, I'm trying to gather information for you to help you be better prepared, okay? And some of these are legitimate concerns that I think are definitely things that Royal Caribbean needs to consider taking care of or fixing. Just going to go right down them. And if I realize that I'm doubling up a little bit, I'll point that out. All right, number one I said was inexperienced passengers. What do I mean by this? There were definitely a lot of first-time cruisers on this cruise. That's what Royal Caribbean was hoping for. They really were trying to attract a lot of new cruisers to Royal Caribbean and to their Oasis class ships by offering these shorter itineraries that might be a little bit easier for people to, you know, get time off work or afford or whatever. Now, I'm not going to say that this cruise was cheap. Because the ship is new ships are always going to be the most expensive ships. It was over $1,000 for each of us. It was $1,300, $1,400 for each of us for a 4-night cruise. That's pretty expensive. But that's because the ship was new. But they definitely were attracting a lot of very new passengers. You can see them. When you're an experienced cruiser and you've been on a lot of cruises, you can see the people who've never been on a cruise before. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, they're very confused. They look overwhelmed. They look lost. Or they're just kind of obnoxious in their behavior because they don't recognize like the proper etiquette of like being on a cruise or whatever. One of the things that I can think of right off the top of my head was, and this isn't even just a cruise thing. This is just a life thing. Why don't people know this? Teach your kids, please, okay? Wait until people get off the elevator before you get on the elevator, okay? So many people were just getting on the elevator as soon as the elevator doors open. And I don't know if that new elevator system that they have, that they're using on Utopia of the Seas was throwing people off. Like, you know, you push the deck that you want to go to, and then it tells you which elevator to get on. And people would rush over there. And then like, as soon as that elevator opened, they felt like they had to get on it right away. No, it's still an elevator. It still works just like any other elevator. You got to wait and let the people off before you get on. Or I don't know if they were expecting them all to be empty or what. But it was kind of a lot of stuff like that. Like just people like not knowing what to do or where to go. And you sort of feel like they're kind of in the way when they're like that because they don't know what they're doing. They're inexperienced. Part of me wants to help them, but my kids get a little annoyed with me. They're like, Mom, just leave them be if I offer help without people asking me. And so a lot of it is just kind of like you're trying to just steer around these people that don't know what they're doing. So that's not a problem with Utopia of the Seas, but it kind of is, because Royal Caribbean is trying to attract new cruisers or first-time cruisers with this particular ship. So be prepared that that's going to be an element of that. All right, second thing, the bed and the pillows were awful. We did not like the bed and the pillows. Every other Royal Caribbean ship I've been on, the bed has been super comfortable. These beds seemed especially narrow. I mean, we have the, it's a big bed and then they split it into two twins. But these didn't seem like they were actually twins. Technically, if you look at the size of mattresses sizes, two twin beds actually makes a king. And these, when they were together, when we first got on the ship, they looked like just a queen. So if you're splitting a queen in half, that's not a full twin size mattress. I mean, it was barely on either side of me. They were narrow. They were narrow and they were not comfortable. I can't remember. I think they were too hard. They kind of felt cheap. The mattresses did. They did not feel like good quality mattresses. And every other cruise I've been on, the bed is usually great. And these beds were not great. I did not sleep well on the beds. The beds were not comfortable. And the pillows were also not good. I can't remember if they were no, I know what was wrong. They were huge. The pillows on the beds were massive. They were like this big. They were so big. And like, they were weird. They weren't normal sized pillows. I don't know why they had such huge pillows. They were really weird and they were hard to do things with. So the bed and the pillows we didn't like. The party vibe. Yeah, there was definitely a party vibe. They're actually literally promoting all these different parties and coming up with all these parties. We did not go to a single party. We had no interest in the party thing. Like I said in my previous video about 3 best and 3 worst, I think they came up with that whole party world's biggest weekend marketing kind of at the last minute. And a lot of people like me who had booked the ship far in advance were not expecting that. And you could see the people who it threw them off. And they were expecting just a regular Royal Caribbean cruise experience. And if you don't go on Carnival, you know what I'm talking about, okay? You don't go on Carnival because you don't want that vibe, right? And so they kind of brought the Carnival vibe onto a Royal Caribbean ship. And not only did you see a lot of people who were uncomfortable with that, because they weren't expecting that, but it almost also didn't seem to fit on the ship itself. It's like the ship was not designed for that. I don't know how to better explain it, but it just felt weird. It just felt off. Like it didn't feel right. It didn't have the right kind of atmosphere and the right kind of vibe for the ship. It felt very strange. There's no way around the casino. Now I remember on Harmony of the Seas, the casino and Studio B, which is where the ice rink are on the same deck on both ships. But on Harmony of the Seas, there were 2 ways you could get around the casino. Two ways to get around Studio B, sorry. 2 hallways. And they took one of the hallways out. And so the only hallway that goes around Studio B is just on one side, and it's also the art gallery. And so that was kind of a problem because people who were trying to go down that hall, it made it difficult. There was too much traffic and people were trying to stop and look at the art, and there's all these people walking by. But then beyond that, you also had no way on that deck. What deck was that? 4? It's 4 or 3 to get around the casino. There's no way. People under 18 are not supposed to be going through the casino, and there's also smoking in the casino. And if you wanted to be able to avoid that and get to the other half of the deck, you couldn't. You either had to walk through the casino or you had to go up or down a deck and to get past it. There's actually quite a lot of ships where this is a problem. I would like that to not be a design thing. I mean, I think they're trying to take up as much room as they can with the casino, but they definitely should make a better way to get around the casino, especially for families with kids. Okay, now I set our table location. We were way in the back of the dining room in kind of a dead end, and it was kind of tight and hard to get in there. Other tables were kind of in our way. Didn't love that. I ended up not minding it, but initially we were kind of disappointed with where our table was in the dining room. We did try to go, the second day of the cruise, we went to the dining room staff during the day when it was quiet and asked if they had any other tables available that we could switch to. And she actually took us in and showed us, I could put you here or I could put you here. There were 2 other places. And we looked at them and we really kind of thought about it, but we decided that we didn't like either of those places better, or at least not enough to lose our waiters. We liked our wait staff very much. We didn't like either of these other tables better enough to give up the wait staff that we had. So we stayed where we were. Venues for games. This is a problem on all Oasis class ships, actually. The venues where they play things like trivia and game shows and stuff are too small. You don't realize, if you've never been on a smaller, older ship, what I'm talking about. But the venue spaces for games and game shows and trivia and stuff like that on the older ships are actually way bigger, including karaoke, way bigger on the smaller, older ships than they are on the Oasis class ships. I don't know what they're thinking. This is a problem with the Oasis class ships in general. They have more people on those big ships, which naturally would lead to there being more people who want to play the games and play the trivia and play the game shows and sing karaoke, but they make the venues smaller, which I do not get at all. So I don't know who's making the ships over at Royal Caribbean, but they need to rethink that because it's dumb. Too big. And again, this is just a problem with Oasis class ships in general, but this one especially felt this way, probably because it was shorter. It felt rather impersonal because it's so big and you weren't on it long enough to get to know the crew very well or anything. And so it just felt too big. The included dining had 2 limited hours. What I mean by this is that there were other dining venues besides the main dining room and besides the buffet that we would have liked to try. Especially Andrew wanted to try. He never got to. Because when he would go to try it, it was closed. They basically only seemed to be open for lunch, kind of. And I guess I'm not sure. But again, you're in port so much, you're not really eating lunch on the ship. So he never got to try. He wanted to go to the hot dog place and he wanted to go to the local fresh place, the taco place. And he never could because every time he would try to go there, it was closed. They're all closed in the evenings. Not extra charge, included places that you could eat that weren't the main dining room or the buffet. The hours were really limited. So that was a bummer. Again, this might be a Royal Caribbean wide thing, but this was the first Royal Caribbean cruise we had been on. If this was a change, they're down to 1 service per day of the rooms. We don't like that. We think that there should be 2 services per day. They need to have more housekeeping staff, whatever. They're trying to cut back by having less housekeeping staff, by having them only do 1 service a day. I will say, though, that on this cruise, our stateroom attendant did a much better job with that 1 service a day than our stateroom attendant on Holland America Eurodam did with the 1 service a day. He was better about doing a good job with it, or picking the right time to do it, I guess. But if you prefer 2 services a day, they make up your room in the morning and then you have turn down service at night. You're not going to get it on this ship or on Royal Caribbean apparently anymore. Back to the too big. If you have mobility issues, ships this size, and again, this would be all the Oasis class ships or Icon, it's a lot of walking. It takes a long time to get from place to place. If you have a walker or a cane or a limp, or anything, you're elderly or something that slows you down, big ships like this are going to be difficult for you because the distances are so great. And I was actually surprised. I did not see very many people at all with mobility scooters on this ship. And I don't know if that's just because it was a much younger crowd than you might typically see, but I maybe only saw 1 or 2 mobility scooters the entire time we were on this cruise, which was weird. Boring itinerary. We didn't love the itinerary. We're kind of sick of the whole Bahamas cruise thing. And Utopia, that's what it's for. So if you want an itinerary that's going to be really interesting or unique or special, this is not it, okay? It went to Nassau and it went to Perfect Day at Coco Cay, and that's it. I didn't like the storage in the cabins. Morgan from Very Unofficial Travel Guides, he recently made a video about the cabin on Utopia of the Seas, and he said he felt like it was cheap. And I think he might be right. Just like how I said the beds didn't feel like they were very good quality, I feel like everything in the cabin, it's like, it might be like they kind of cheaped out a little bit and they didn't get as nice of stuff. Everything felt kind of generic. And I did not like the way they had the storage arranged at all. They had a lot of storage. There was a lot of place to put things, but it was all spread out and divided up. Now, one possible benefit of that is if you're like, say you're like 3 friends traveling together. It was a little easier, like, okay, you get this cabinet because it's closest to your bed, and you get this one because it's closest to your bed, and you get the drawers over here because it's closest to your bed. I can see that. But if you're like just 2 of us like we were, it was dumb. It was like I'd be getting dressed and I'm like, oh, my shirts are hanging here, but I got to go all the way across the cabin over there to get my socks and my underwear because they're in the drawers over there. So it didn't make a lot of sense to me the way that they had the storage arranged within the cabin. It was kind of odd. It was probably the least efficient. Even though it was a lot of storage, it was the least efficiently arranged storage that I had encountered in a cruise ship. Okay, again, I mean, some of these are starting to repeat. Again, an awkward mix of guests. I'm just going down my list here. Yeah, it was families and, you know, older people like you'd see on any cruise, but then like these wild people who are expecting to party. And it was like, what? This doesn't go together. You know, like the ship had some really nice play areas for kids and some family areas, but then it's like they'd have all these parties all the time. It's like, well, which is it? There needs to be a better way to do this. It felt very strange and off-putting. I said I kept wishing I was on Disney, and Andrew kept comparing it to Holland America, or we kept saying, gosh, I wish I was on Navigator or one of the other, you know, ships in that class, because we had more fun on those smaller, older ships. No library. There is no library. There is no lounge. There is nowhere to sit. Yes, this was definitely weird. And I couldn't put my finger on it at first. I'm like, feels like there's no place to sit. Like just to sit and like relax. Not because you're in a dining venue and you're sitting to eat. Or not because you're in a bar and you're sitting there having a drink. But just like out in the cruise ship somewhere. Like, I felt like there was no place to sit down. And, like, no room you could go to, like a library or a lounge or something like that, where you could just sit and, like, play card games or board games or something like you see on other ships. And I figured out a way to check it, because I couldn't quite put my finger on what I meant by this. And then I said, no, wait. Where are they having the Friends of Bill W. meetings? If you're not aware, the Friends of Bill W. is Alcoholics Anonymous, named after the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, whose name was Bill. Okay. Friends of Bill W. meetings are usually in a place like what I'm saying, a library or a lounge or some quiet space with comfortable chairs that's quiet and kind of out of the way or whatever, where people can have a nice quiet place where they can have a meeting. So I looked on the schedule to find where they were having the Friends of Bill W. meetings. This proved my point. They were having the Friends of Bill W. meetings in the main dining room. Okay? That just proved my point that there was no place to sit. There was no comfortable place on the ship to sit quietly like that and have a conversation or, you know, play a game of cards or whatever. There was nothing like that anywhere where you could sit and do that. And the fact that they had to have the Friends of Bill W. meeting in the main dining room proved my point. Along with that, except for on the top decks, and even that was tough. There was no place on this ship where you could sit and look out at the ocean view. The best place for this really was your balcony, your own balcony. So if you didn't have a balcony, I could not find any place on this ship where there were nice, relaxing chairs anywhere that faced outwards to the ocean where I could just sit and lounge and relax and look at the view of the ocean. Honestly, when you're on those top decks, all those chairs are facing toward the pool. And part of the reason they're facing towards the pool instead of outwards is because you're too high up there to see the ocean anyway, because the ship is so big and so tall. So there was no place on this ship that you could see the ocean. You could sit on a chair and lounge. And like Disney Cruise Line's older ships on their promenade deck is exactly what I'm talking about, where they have those nice promenade deck chairs with cushions, and same on Holland America promenade deck with nice deck chairs and blankets and everything where you can sit and you can look out at the ocean. There's nothing like that on this ship. Along with this, one of our favorite places on Harmony of the Seas was on the Deck 5 jogging track, which kind of has to be the substitute for the promenade deck, if you will. It's the only place where you can really walk all the way around the ship, which is something we really enjoyed doing on Harmony of the Seas. There's these little kind of bump out secret little kind of spaces where on Harmony of the Seas, they had nice chairs that you could sit at there and look out at the ocean. They had the dumbest furniture, if you can call it that, on Utopia of the Seas. It's like they didn't want you to sit there. The stuff was too low. I couldn't even get down off, on it. The kids even had trouble. I don't know what that stuff was. Again, it felt cheap. It felt like they didn't want you to sit there and enjoy the view of the ocean. So we were really disappointed on that because that was one of our favorite spaces on Harmony of the Seas. Too hot to go outside, too much time in port. I feel like ships are meant to move. Ships are meant to move and go places. And it just felt like on this cruise, like we were docked almost the entire time. Now that's an issue of the itinerary, not necessarily the ship. But you need to know that because Utopia of the Seas is for, a Bahamas itinerary, that's how it's going to be. And especially on a 3-night, you're basically going to be docked the whole time. Problems with the app. This might, again, be a Royal Caribbean wide thing. It was very difficult for us to use the chat feature to communicate with each other on the free version of the Royal Caribbean app. It was very delayed. We wouldn't get the messages in a timely manner, and so they were kind of irrelevant at that point. It had a weird layout. It was hard to find things and each other. I mean, I've kind of talked about this already, but it was a strange layout. Okay, this is definitely a Utopia only. New high-tech elevators only seem to work right some of the time and never at busy times. This was definitely true. They were very inconsistent. The other thing that we noticed was it's like they were only using some of the elevators. No matter what deck we were on or what deck we were going to, it seemed like the same 2 or 3 elevators were always the ones it was telling us to get on. And it was like it was only using the ones in the middle. It was like they weren't using, there were 8 elevators at each elevator bank, but they were only telling us to use 2 or 3 of them all the time. And so it kind of was like, are the other ones not working? Like, why do we always keep getting in elevator D? It was B and D. I remember that. We kept getting in B and D over and over and over again. And I'm like, don't we ever go in A, C, E, or F? I mean, like, what? And it was very strange. And then when it was busy times, like at dinner time, when everybody's trying to go down to dinner, it's like they didn't work right at all. So that was kind of frustrating. They didn't seem like an improvement to me. This I'm going to chalk up to being related to the entertainment staff, which we were not very impressed with. Some of the games and activities were really duds. Like the questions were bad. Like, and not just trivia, but like some of the like game show type things that they did. The entertainment staff, it's like they were trying to be funny or make it fun, but it wasn't. And it's like, I don't know, that was just kind of bewildering. That was kind of disappointing. Missing and incorrect information. Now, this might be related to, again, the entertainment staff, but also the fact that the ship was so new. Like, for example, the locations in the app would be wrong. And then we'd finally figure it out after we were at the place for a while, and we're like, this is not the thing. And it wasn't just us. There were lots of other people who would realize after a few minutes, this is not the right thing. We're supposed to be at this. And then we'd finally have to ask, we wanted to be at this. Where is that? And they're like, oh, sorry, the app was wrong. You got to go all the way across the ship to this place. And then I remember a couple different times that happened where the location information in the app was completely wrong. And people were going to the wrong place and then missing a bunch of the activity because by the time they finally walked to where it was actually being held, it was half over. Like the movies on the big screen in the Aqua Theater, that was something that we had really enjoyed on our cruise on Harmony of the Seas. They did show movies a couple times, but they weren't in the app at all. The only way that we knew that they were even doing that was we happened to be out there on the boardwalk and saw it up on the screen. Oh, at 9 o'clock tonight, we're going to be showing this movie here. That's the only way you knew about it. There was nothing in the app at all about the movie. I got the sense from what the entertainment staff themselves said that it was them, that they were messing up, that the people who were supposed to be responsible for informing the guests of these things were not doing their jobs right. No place to get good water. I think this was Megan's complaint. She did not like the water that they were serving like in the dining room or whatever, and she wanted better water. And you can drink the water like out of the tap in your bathroom in your cabin, but it didn't get cold. That's right. The water in the cabin was never cold. It was hot, like coming out of the sink. And so like, even like when we had to take like medication or brushing your teeth and stuff, you'd go to use the water and the water was warm/hot coming out of your tap. And so it was really hard to find a place to get good cold water to be able to do stuff like that and to drink. Day 3, I wrote a note that this was the first time I actually do feel trapped on a ship. And that's a pretty significant thing to say, because one of the things that people say is that I don't want to take a cruise because I'm going to feel like I'm trapped on the ship. And I've always laughed that off and said, oh, that's ridiculous. Cruising is so wonderful and so fun, and there's so much fun stuff to do, and it's so great and everything. But on this cruise, I actually did reach a point where I wrote down, I feel like I'm trapped on the ship, because I was not having a good time. I was not having fun. I was disappointed with the cruise, and I wished I could get off. Oh, this one. The fact that it's right after that, I think it happened on that same day. It was the sea day. I was in the elevator with several other passengers, and an officer got into the elevator with us. And instead of doing what everybody does and turning around and facing the door, he stood right in front of the door and looked at all of us and asked us how we were enjoying the cruise. And nobody said anything. Everybody just like looked at the floor and was like, And I thought that was so telling. First of all, he put everybody on the spot. He put us all in this very awkward situation. But the fact that nobody said, oh, I'm having a great time, or oh, it's great, or it's terrific, or anything, nobody said anything. The show, the main stage show, lots of people walked out early. Lots and lots. The best thing about it that we liked was the aerialists, the aerial performers. That was the part that we thought was good. It was so bizarre. It jumped all over the place. It had no story. It had no, it was so weird. It was just like random singing, dancing acts, like put one after the other. The sets and the costumes and the lighting were really impressive. The singers were not great. There were a couple singers that were actually, quite frankly, really bad. When we were walking back to our cabin after the show, there was a mom and a little girl like in the same passageway as us. And I heard the mom say to the husband, the wife say to the husband, that was so boring. And then the daughter came up and said, Mom, that show was really weird. And I laughed because I thought that really captured it well. It was boring and it was weird. So not great there. This is something that struck me. And again, I'm wondering if this is a Royal Caribbean big ship thing. And it makes me not like how much they're pushing the big ships. I know they make a lot of money off the big ships, but I didn't like this at all. A lot of the crew that we talked to didn't even have an awareness of the other ships that weren't big ships. So they would know about all the Oasis class ships, and they knew about Icon, and they knew about the new Icon ships that were being built, and they might know about the Quantum and that class. Okay, Quantum. They didn't know about the whole Voyager class. They didn't know about the smaller, older ships that so many people love. And that people who are more destination focused or who are more likely to book long cruises and who like a lot of days at sea and stuff, those are the type of ships that those passengers go on. And the fact that the crew on this ship didn't even know that those ships existed, much less be able to talk about them with passengers, really kind of troubled me. Because I'm like, they should be a little bit more aware of their company as a whole, not just that the ship that they're on. Because they need to be able to connect with the passengers who might want a different experience, or who might have had really positive experiences on other ships like we have. We were like, oh, when we were on such and such, they didn't even know what ship I was talking about. So that was kind of troubling to me that they aren't better educated about the whole of the Royal Caribbean fleet and what all Royal Caribbean has to offer. It's not all just like this. This is something that Andrew brought up, and I agreed with him. I'm on a ship. I want to feel like I'm on a ship. I want a reminder that I'm on a ship. There was nothing on this ship that was nautical or related to the sea or anything. Like, for example, when we were on Mariner, now, first of all, the ship is called a nautical name. That whole class of ships, Mariner, Navigator, Explorer, it has a vibe of you're going on the ocean and you're going to explore the world. There's nothing like that on Utopia at all. There's no nautical imagery. There's nothing about ships or the ocean or the sea or anything anywhere. Not visually. They don't talk about it. There's nothing educational. There's no educational programming. There's no enrichment programming. Now, granted, I kind of understand that the people that are going on this type of ship aren't really looking for that, but you could have something. There was no panel where you could talk to the crew or the officers or anything. There was no behind the scenes tours. There was nothing. There was nothing enrichment related or ocean or sea going related at all. There was nothing about the fact that this is a ship and I want to learn about or see or somehow have some kind of connection to the fact that I'm on a ship on the ocean. There was nothing like that at all. And so I didn't like that, because to me, that's a lot of the cool part of a cruise, is the fact that you're on a ship and you're traveling by sea. Not only did they not offer anything, that you could attend or learn about or see or anything, you can't even see the ocean on this ship. Even more than on Harmony of the Seas, I felt like everything was focused so inwards. It was very, very difficult to even see the ocean. Again, unless you were on your own balcony. There was like nowhere that you could go that you could look at the sea and be reminded that you were on a ship. Too loud. And not just loud like with music blaring and the people were loud. Yes, those things were true. There were also plenty of places you could go on the ship where it was definitely quieter. But they are turning the music on so loud that I think that it was actually damaging people's hearing. Like the tech crew is turning the volume of things like at the shows up much too loud. They're overcompensating, thinking like it needs to be louder than crowd noise or something, but it was so loud, it was painful. And I really am genuinely concerned that they could be damaging people's hearing, especially their own performers. I'm realizing now as I go through it, it isn't necessarily that it's about Utopia of the Seas, but it's more that some of it is, and you'll see this more if you watch the vlogs. The changes that they made from previous Oasis class ships to Utopia, I didn't like. I couldn't think of any change that I saw that I liked better on Utopia. You know, like physical changes to the ship. There wasn't anything that I thought was an improvement. And I guess like the way the ship is run and the, you know, all the things on board, the onboard experience of Utopia of the Seas, I definitely liked much less than I did when I was on Harmony of the Seas. I'd like to say that I think you have to be a particular type of passenger to enjoy a cruise on Utopia of the Seas, but I still am not completely sure what that type of passenger is. Like, I'm still not completely sure who they mean this to be for, because it really isn't clear. I feel like it kind of left everybody feeling a little bit like, is this the right ship for me? I can't tell. It was weird. It was a weird experience, and it was definitely not our favorite. It's definitely actually at the bottom of my list for Royal Caribbean cruises of how much I enjoyed this cruise, so which is unfortunate. I mean, the main reason we decided to do this one was because Andrew has wanted to go on an Oasis class ship since they first came out with Oasis of the Seas way back a long time ago. I guess I would have liked to have taken him on one of the 7 nights on Harmony or Symphony or Wonder instead. I would have preferred that if we could have afforded that. We didn't have enough time or money to do that at this time. I honestly don't know if he even really would care if he ever goes on an Oasis class ship again. He definitely seemed to like the smaller size ship that was a longer cruise and more itinerary focused and more connected to the ocean like I do. So I think he's probably one and done with an Oasis class ship too. So I'm a little bit nervous in conclusion that instead of sparking interest in the Oasis class ships, that Utopia of the Seas might actually turn people off. That the type of people that would enjoy a 7-night on another Oasis class ship might actually be turned off by Utopia of the Seas' onboard experience and decide that they don't want to do another Royal Caribbean Oasis class ship cruise. If you've been on Utopia, tell me how much of this you agree with or disagree with. How many of these things did you notice? And what are your thoughts on this? I'm just kind of curious. Thank you again for taking the time to watch this video. I know this was a long one. I hope that it was helpful to you. If it was, be sure to give me a thumbs up down below. And make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss any of my upcoming content. Have a great day. Safe travels.